Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today we're traveling back in time, back to 10th century Britain, a land, well, before England as we know it.
Yeah, it was really more of a, you know, patchwork of kingdoms all jostling for power and
Constantly at each other's
yeah,
throats.
pretty much constant struggle. And then comes this one ruler, King Ethelstan, who really wants to change the game. He's got this vision, you
A
said.
vision of unity.
Exactly, to bring all these Anglo-Saxon kingdoms together, unite them under his rule. And you could say he was kind of laying the groundwork for what would eventually become, well, England as we know it.
So for this deep dive, we're focusing on one battle in particular, the Battle of Brunanburh, 937 AD. And for this, we're drawing from the Stuff You Missed in History Class podcast episode.
Right, and this battle, it's fascinating, because a lot of historians see it as a turning point in English history, but there's also so much mystery surrounding it. We don't even know for sure like where exactly it took place.
That's incredible, isn't it? A battle of this magnitude, potentially pivotal in shaping England, and we can't even pinpoint its location.
Yep. More than 30 potential sites have been proposed by historians, each with its own set of clues and arguments.
A real historical puzzle, then.
Yeah, definitely a puzzle. But before we get into all that with Brunanburh and its mysteries, maybe we should set the scene a bit. Paint a picture of what the British Isles actually looked like back then.
It's a land of what? Wessex, Mercia, East Anglia?
You got it. Wessex, Mercia, East Anglia, Northumbria, all these different kingdoms. And to make things even more complicated, Northumbria was under the control of Viking rulers at the time.
So not exactly a recipe for peace and stability, then.
No, not at all. It was really a very volatile, very fragile political landscape. And Ethelstan, he understood this. So initially, he tried to secure peace through strategic marriages. He even went as far as marrying his own sister to a Viking king, try to cement an
A
alliance.
risky move. Did it work?
Well, for a while, maybe. But these alliances, they proved to be pretty fragile. And eventually, Ethelstan started to see certain Viking rulers, especially those in Northumbria, as a direct threat, a threat to his vision of a unified England.
So this is where the seeds of Brunanburh are sown.
Exactly, a Viking invasion fleet. And we're not even completely sure who instigated it, whether it was purely a Viking initiative or if Ethelstan's rivals had a hand in it. But anyway, this Viking fleet landed on the coast, forcing Ethelstan to gather his forces and prepare for war.
So already we've got mystery and intrigue. Not just the location of the battle itself, but the very reasons behind it. Was it a straightforward Viking invasion, or was there something more going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, that's a question historians are still trying to untangle. Some believe it was an opportunistic move by the Vikings, a chance to regain some of the territory they'd lost. But others suspect that Ethelstan's rivals within his kingdom and maybe even outside of it saw an opportunity to weaken him, to maybe even overthrow him.
A web of conspiracy on top of everything else. Makes you wonder how much of what we think we know about this period is based on solid fact and how much is, well, speculation.
Right. I mean, the sources from this period they're often fragmentary, and you always have to consider the biases. Like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, for example. Well, it was written from the Anglo-Saxon perspective, so naturally it probably presents Ethelstan in a more favorable light.
Of course, every story has multiple sides. But in this case, the voices of Ethelstan's opponents, the Vikings, the other rulers, those voices are mostly lost to history.
That's true, and it serves as a reminder that history is never truly objective. It's more like a tapestry woven from different perspectives, each with its own agenda.
So it's a matter of piecing together these different threads, weighing the evidence, and trying to get as close to the truth as possible.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
So this battle, this Brunanburh, we've established it's crucial. But we still don't know where it happened. You said there were like, what, 30 possible locations?
Yeah, over 30. It's a pretty wide area too. We're talking from Yorkshire all the way down to the Wirral Peninsula.
So north to west, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And for a long time, the most popular theory was Yorkshire. That was based on an account by John of Worcester. He was a monk, a chronicler, writing back in the 12th century.
Hold on. So he was writing, what, like centuries after the battle actually happened?
Exactly, and that's part of the problem. See, John of Worcester, he was relying on sources that we don't have anymore, lost to time. And his account, well, there are some inconsistencies, things that don't quite add up. So, historians have started to question whether it's entirely accurate.
So we could be basing our understanding of this major historical event on basically secondhand information, like a game of telephone, but with history.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, it's like historical telephone. But more recently, there's another theory that's gaining more traction, the Wirral Peninsula theory.
Okay, so what makes the Wirral a more likely spot?
Well, for one thing, it makes sense strategically. It would have given both sides, the Vikings and Ethelstan's forces, access to waterways. It would have been a logical place for a large-scale battle like this.
And I imagine the actual landscape, the terrain, would have played a big role in how the battle played out.
Absolutely. The terrain, the resources, any potential defensive positions, all those things would have influenced the strategies used by both sides.
So what kind of evidence are historians looking for to back up these different theories?
Oh, all sorts of things. They look at place names, archaeological finds, anything that might offer a clue. Some think that the name Brunanburh itself might give us some hints. The burr part, that's Old English for or a fortified place, so it suggests that maybe the battle took place near some kind of a pre-existing defensive structure.
Like maybe an old hill fort from the Iron Age or
Yeah.
even Roman times.
Exactly. Those kinds of sites would have been strategically important in the 10th century, just like they were centuries before.
It's incredible to think that these remnants of the past might hold clues to a battle that shaped the course of English history.
And the archaeological finds, they're fascinating too. Weapons, armor, even human remains dating back to the early medieval period. They've been found all over Britain, and these finds, they give us these glimpses into the lives of the people who lived back then. And maybe, just maybe, they can help us connect specific artifacts to Brunanburh.
So it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle
Yeah.
with pieces scattered all over the British Isles.
You got it. A giant historical jigsaw puzzle. And every new piece, whether it's a place name, an artifact, or a new way of looking at an old text, it brings us a little bit closer to understanding this crucial moment in history.
Okay, let's say just for a moment that we could somehow magically pinpoint the location of Brunanburh. What would that tell us about the battle itself?
Oh, wow. That would be huge. If we knew the exact location, we could analyze the terrain, figure out the strategic decisions made by both sides, maybe even reconstruct the whole battle step by step.
Like watching a historical documentary come to life.
Exactly. We could see the armies move, the shield walls clash, the whole ebb and flow of the battle. It would completely change our understanding of the battle and its importance.
And it might even give us some answers about how decisive Ethelstan's victory really was. Because the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, it portrays Brunanburh as this resounding triumph. But is that the whole story?
That's a great point. We have to remember history is often written by the winners, so it's possible that the accounts we have, they're downplaying the challenges that Ethelstan faced, the losses he suffered.
So maybe it wasn't such a clear-cut victory after all.
Maybe not. It's important to read between the lines, to consider the other perspectives, and to remember that even a victory can come at a very high cost.
So we've got this epic battle, shrouded in mystery, potentially a turning point in English history. But what did it actually look like? What were the tactics, the fighting styles?
Well, the most common theory is that Brunanburh was fought using shield walls. Imagine two lines of warriors, shields locked together, just pushing against each other in this brutal, chaotic clash.
Now it's intense.
It would have been terrifying. The sound of metal on metal, the screams, the sheer force of thousands of men. It would have been overwhelming.
And beyond the shield walls, were there any other tactics being used?
Well, the shield wall, that was probably the main formation, but the accounts do mention other things. Athelstan's army, it had a lot of mounted warriors, so it's likely there was some cavalry charges.
Cavalry charges. I mean, that must have been devastating on a medieval battlefield.
Mm.
The speed, the impact, the psychological effect. It's hard to imagine anything more terrifying.
Right, and we can't forget about archers. They wouldn't have been as decisive as they would become later on, but their arrows could still cause casualties, disrupt the enemy formations.
So we're talking about a dynamic battle with different units, different tactics, all coming into play at different times.
Exactly. It wouldn't have been static, predictable. The commanders, they would have had to adapt, exploit weaknesses, seize opportunities.
It's mind-blowing to think about the the level of strategic thinking involved in a battle like this, the constant calculations, the adjustments needed to win.
And even with the best plans, luck played a role. The weather, a lucky shot, a moment of hesitation, anything could have changed the outcome.
So even in a battle as important as Brunanburh, there is no guarantee of victory.
Exactly. History is full of unexpected twists and turns, and Brunanburh, it's a perfect example of that.
So we've talked about the mystery of the location, the tactics, the ambiguity of the victory. But what about Ithelstan himself? What kind of leader was he? What drove him to pursue this ambitious goal of unifying England? So Ethelstan, this ambitious ruler, what do we actually know about him as a person? What was he like? What made him tick?
Well, we have to remember that back then, in the 10th century, the idea of England, like a single unified nation that didn't really exist yet.
Right, more of a collection of kingdoms.
Exactly. And Athelstan, he was building on what his grandfather, Alfred the Great, had started. Alfred, he defended Wessex from the Vikings, laid the groundwork for a stronger, more unified Anglo-Saxon realm. And Ethelstan, well, it seems like he saw himself as the one to finish the job.
So more than just personal ambition, like a sense of duty, of destiny almost.
I think that's a fair assessment. The sources, they depict him as a very devout Christian, a man who truly believed he had a divine right to rule, to bring peace and order to the land. And unifying the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, that could have been his way of achieving that, of creating a more stable, more prosperous realm.
But it wasn't just about internal politics, right? Athelstan also had to deal with threats from outside, from the Vikings.
Oh, absolutely. The Vikings, they were a constant challenge. Aethelstan's reign, it was marked by both diplomacy and conflict. He understood the threat they posed, but he also saw the potential benefits of trade, of cultural exchange. That early alliance he formed with the Viking king through the marriage of his sister, that shows his pragmatic side.
So willing to negotiate, to compromise, but also ready to use force when he had to.
Exactly. Ethelstan, he was a complex figure, a ruler who understood power, how to use both strength and diplomacy. And Brunanburh, wherever it was, whatever the exact details, it shows his willingness to take action, to defend his realm, to pursue his vision.
It makes you wonder, though, how differently we might view Ethelstan if we had accounts from his opponents, from the Viking leaders, from the rulers of Scotland, of Strathclyde.
Oh, for sure. I mean, history is often told from the perspective of the victors. And with Athelstan, we mostly have the Anglo-Saxon side of the story, so it definitely shapes our perception of him.
So we may never have the complete picture. But this search for Brunanburh, this quest to understand this battle, it still captivates us. Why is that? Why should we, over 1,000 years later, still care about a battle fought so long ago?
I think Brunanburh, even with all the mystery surrounding it, it's a powerful reminder of the forces that shaped Britain, shaped England. It's a story of ambition, of conflict, of the struggle for power. Themes that echo throughout history.
And it reminds us that history isn't just, dates and names in a textbook. It's human stories, it's triumphs and tragedies. It's the desire to understand our past and how it connects to who we are today.
Absolutely. By exploring the mysteries of Brunanburh, by piecing together the evidence, we get a deeper appreciation for how complex history really is and how the past continues to influence us.
So for our listeners who are intrigued by all this, who want to delve deeper into this world of Ethelstan the Vikings, this pivotal battle, where should they start? What resources would you recommend?
There are some great books out there. Michael Livingston's Battle of Brunanburh, a case book. That's a good one if you're interested in the different theories about the location. And for a broader overview of the period, I'd recommend Michael Wood's In Search of England, a journey through the English past.
And for those who like to get hands-on with history, you can always visit some of the proposed battle sites. Imagine standing there on those hills in Yorkshire or on the Wirral Peninsula and trying to picture those armies clashing over 1,000 years ago.
It really does bring history to life, doesn't it?
It does. It reminds us that the past isn't some distant abstract thing. It's all around us, in the landscape, in the stories we tell, in who we are.
So yeah, keep exploring, keep asking questions. Never lose that sense of wonder, that curiosity. Who knows what other mysteries are out there just waiting to be discovered?
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Athelstan and the Battle of Brunanburh. We hope you've enjoyed it. And until next time, keep exploring the fascinating depths of history.